Let me be the first one to introduce our keynote here. We're very excited because, so much experience and so much breadth of industry experience that we have here today as we kick off our symposium. So I'd like to invite our keynote speaker, Mr. Ken Stockdell. Ken, if you want to come up, I'll introduce you. So Ken actually has a 40-year career as an architect and has been dedicated to the planning, design, and construction of convention centers across North America and internationally, which includes Greenville, from what we're talking about. So in 2019, he joined Georgia World Congress Center Authority's project management team, has been serving as a director of project and project management since 2021. His extensive background has provided Ken with a unique perspective on planning and delivering large-scale projects in the public sector through a variety of methods. His project experience includes work at Georgia World Congress Center in Atlanta, McCormick Place in Chicago, Washington Convention Center in DC, the New Orleans Ernest Convention Center, Savannah Convention Center in Georgia, and my favorite in my hometown, the World Convention Center in Mumbai, India. So, thank you again, Ken, for being here. We're excited for what you have to share. So give him a big round of applause, Ken, as our keynote speaker for the morning.
Well, thank you, Duval, and thank you, Paul, for inviting me to do this. I'm glad to have the opportunity to share a little bit about what I've learned in all those years and all those projects. I'm here because of a phone call I got from my friend Brad Hutto from Holder. Of course, the Holder team has a long-standing relationship with the Georgia World Congress Center Authority, and you'll hear a theme, I think, from me at least, throughout the day that building those relationships is a really critical part of our business. I'll come back to that kind of at the end. And as Duval said, I have been involved in the design and planning of convention centers my whole career. It all started as an accident, actually. Finishing up at Georgia Tech, my master's program there, and had some time, wanted to make a little money, so I answered a call for some drafting help, some short-term drafting help that was on the wall at the school, and started work at TVS in Atlanta back in those days, working on finishing up the construction documents for a corporate headquarters that never got built. When that assignment finished up, I said, hey, I'd like to continue working part-time while I'm finishing. You got any opportunities for that? They moved me over to the team that was working on the construction administration for phase 2 of the Georgia World Congress Center. So my very first real project assignment is where I work now. It's been pretty cool to kind of bookend my career that way. Had a lot of opportunities to see just about every delivery method that you guys deal with. And the scale of the projects I've worked on is probably a lot bigger than many of you do. A small one for me would be one like the work in Greenville here, which was $20 million. Greenville's a favorite place. Started working on that convention center in 2005 when the park downtown was not finished yet, and it's been exciting to watch this community kind of grow over the last 15, 20 years. We need to have this event over at the convention center sometime. I can hook you up on that. Yeah, right. Well, so again, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. And what I want to talk about is related to the theme of risk that we're going to be talking about today. And we usually think of things like contract terms and weather and supply chain and special project circumstances and the risk associated with whatever delivery method we're using. All of those kind of things. We all kind of know what those are. But I want to talk about one that I think is a hidden risk for all of us. I'm on the owner side now. I spent most of my career on the architect side. All of us share in this hidden risk, and it's a risk that it impacts our ability to deliver projects with quality on time and on budget. And here's what it is. We have an industry-wide issue with how how we are preparing the next generation, all those folks that are sitting over there, to do the work they need to do. And this is a trend that I've noticed recently especially. And I'm going to talk about it from two perspectives. I know the design professional side of the industry best, so I am going to talk about that. But also, as kind of a third-party observer, I want to talk about what you all experience in the construction side of it, or the way I see it. I think our design professionals in their training are not being exposed enough anymore to the realities of what they are documenting means to you. 15 years ago, the firm I was at was doing some strategic planning, and we were doing all the future-looking conversations about where was the industry going and all of those things. And we were also doing some SWOT assessments, so looking at what our risks were in particular. And I was looking around the room that day at who was sitting around the table, and two people stuck out to me in that room. Both of those guys had a lot of gray hair. Both of those guys focused their careers on construction administration. And both of them were very close to leaving the industry for retirement. And I didn't see anybody in the room that was clamoring to go do that job. So we are losing a generation very quickly that understands how to build things from the designer's perspective. I'll give you a couple of examples of how that plays out in how the designers work from some recent projects. I should say too that what I'm engaged in right now at the World Congress Center is several big things. We're re-roofing our building, so some of this is going to come out of that experience. 2 million square feet of roof is a lot of roofing to do. We just completed a 1,000-room hotel, so some of this is going to come from that experience. And we've completed a few other projects that are smaller in scale that I've seen what I'm going to talk about, play out. So in our recent hotel project, there's a detail in the guest room tower at the edge where what was drawn was a 1-inch reveal at the edge of a post-tension flat slab between the edge of the slab and the curtain wall. Guess how many places it was 1 inch? Almost zero. But there was no accommodation for the tolerances that we need in that kind of work. And so what happened as an owner? I had to spend a 6-digit number to come in with an after-the-fact fix to make that look good, because we could see the fire safing, we could all of that. The architect designed that detail because he didn't understand how it really was going to work in that real life environment. We have great tools now to help us do a better job, a more efficient job of doing design. And they're all 3D focused. The BIM tools help us identify what it's going to really look like. But we're not paying attention to the power that those tools can give us. So we're not looking at things like, where's the spandrel that's blanked out in the public space next to a concrete beam, and we're not paying attention to what the backside of that looks like. And so now what I'm seeing, instead of a nice clean finish, is I'm seeing foil face on the spandrel installation, because somebody wasn't paying attention to the realities of what that construction meant on the design side. We can't lose sight of the fact that the architects need to understand construction too. On the construction side, one of the challenges that I see is I see a lot of the the project management on the construction side is more focused on managing paperwork and not the project. You're putting your younger folks in charge of managing subcontractors that they don't understand the work that those subcontractors do. And what that means is we end up with uncoordinated work, we end up with out-of-sequence work, things like that. From my perspective as an owner, it looks to me like what's happening because of that kind of problem. When you're putting together your construction schedule, you're collecting all the information from the subcontractor community, putting it all together and turning it in. And what I need and what I'm expecting is that you're going to give it that strategic overview and put it all together. So on my roofing project, for example, we forgot that there were some new drains that needed to be installed. We've already roofed that area. Now we've got to go back and take it apart because somebody forgot to include that in the schedule. In both cases, designers and on the construction side, it's not a question of somebody not being competent. These are skilled folks. You've got good people on your teams. And it's not that they don't want to do the right thing, is that we're not teaching them how to do what we're asking them to do. We're not equipping those teams, designers or construction professionals, with the right tools and the right information. Why is that happening? I have a theory about this, and it's that we have, and it's happening not just in our industry, it's happening all over the place. We have gotten so specialized that we've lost focus of the core competencies and the core elements of what our business is about. It's caused us to create silos in our industry, and those boundaries don't always meet. There's gaps between what each of us do. Designers are going to assume that the people in the construction side are responsible for figuring out how to build what we draw. A little bit, there's some truth in that. But they expect that all they need to do is show you what the finished product is supposed to look like, and then you've got to figure out how to make it happen, even if there's no way to make it happen based on the way it's been designed. On the other hand, on the construction side, you want to have a complete set of documents and only build what is drawn. Has there ever been a perfect set of documents on a construction project? Anybody ever done one of those? Anybody ever seen one of those? We can't expect that. There's going to be gaps. Have you ever not made a mistake in building something? That's going to happen too. And in this sort of siloed world where we're expecting the designers to be perfect and the designers are expecting the builders to be perfect, we're not talking to each other well. And that means there's a lot of back and forth during the project. I think we've all seen in the last 10 to 15 years that on a typical project, RFIs are going crazy. There are hundreds of them on a project that I see that's typical. Not so much, that was not so much the case in the early days of my career. And the conversation around working out all this stuff, which we have to do to get it all done, is all about everybody saying, it's your responsibility. No, that's your responsibility. No, and from the owner's perspective, we're losing time and it's costing me money as this whole exchange takes place, and I have to be the referee. So we have to break those impasses in all of that process. And it's frustrating for us because I guess I'm unusual on the owner side that I've got the experience that I've got and I understand all this stuff. A lot of owners don't. And so you're asking them to make a decision to settle these things outside their expertise too. So it isn't always a good situation. I think the tools that we use, while they're great, are also a part of the problem. For the design professionals, the great technology that we have is making the design and the development of design and the documenting of design so much easier and more efficient. But there's a subtle thing that happens when it's so easy. We have lost sight of what's important to document. Back in the days, my early days when it was ink on Mylar and all of those things early in my career, it took time to draw that. So you had to make decisions about what you were going to draw and what you were not going to draw, what you were going to document, what you were not going to document. Nowadays, it's easy to draw every ceiling tile in that reflected ceiling plan and every tile on that floor pattern. So we do. You've grown to expect that because we can do that. But what we miss is what are the complicated things? What are the things that are going to be hard to reconcile in the field? We get, like I said before, we get this 3D model from Revit or whatever BIM platform everybody's using, but we're not leveraging that tool to its best advantage. I don't think I'm seeing as many 3D details in drawing sets anymore as I used to, because those are the places where it's hard to figure out. We've got to not get seduced by the tools that make it easy to draw, so that to make us think we don't have to think about what we draw and what we document. We don't ask what's important, and we don't think through what we've designed carefully to identify those key locations that are going to be complex and that are going to be critical to fitting all this together. We're able to do some really cool, sexy shapes nowadays. It's not just simple rectangles these days, but that creates complications for the likes of you, and we need to understand how we think it needs to fit together. So that's a tool problem that we've got to overcome. We've got to get a process that helps us overcome the ease with which we can document. I think also on the construction side of the thing, there's not enough attention paid early enough in the process to really analyzing the documents so we can identify areas that are complex or that are unclear and ask those questions early, not right before you're about to build it. I know that time is a factor here, and we as owners have got to understand that at the beginning of the process, it takes time to go through all those documents because there's more of them now. Typical drawing set's a lot bigger than it used to be. Again, because the tools let us do that, and we've come to expect it. So we, the owner, needs you to take the time, because if we don't let you do that, we're at risk for all of the impacts of not having done that. It occurred to me as I was thinking about talking about this yesterday, we have two phrases that we use about details. Both God and the devil are in the details. And we're in a world where we don't like to talk to either one of those people. And so what's happening is a lot of those details are getting overlooked. I mentioned the roof drains earlier. The design team put the little circles on the roof, but they didn't think through where that pipe was going to go. So and it also meant that it wasn't obvious that it was a new drain. So we've had to kind of go back and rethink all of that and go redo some work. That meant that we had roof drains that needed to be installed over switchgear in an existing building. Not a good idea. So all of that leads to problems on how we're going to build that, what we're going to do to deal with that out-of-sequence work and the cost that's involved and the delays that are involved in completing the work. Here's another detail that's a construction issue. All of us love doing slab depressions, right? It's so much fun. And there are two approaches that an architect can use to dealing with that. One of them would be probably a more traditional way where you just block them out of whatever the structural slab is, all the formwork and all the detailing that's involved in that. Or you can say, we're going to make a structural slab and then we're going to top those with the various thicknesses. That's the choice that was made on our hotel project. That got missed in the buyout process. So we had no money in our project for the topping slab. Did the architect do something wrong? No, they chose one of the two options. It just got missed because we weren't paying attention. That turned into a very large 6-digit number that we had to cover to sort all of that out because somebody in the early process of estimating and buying out didn't pay attention to that level of detail. Mistakes like that are going to happen, but we've got to do our best to get on top of that because we're not teaching our people to pay attention to how things fit together and how to build the stuff. We're getting sucked into the attractiveness of technology and all of that and missing what our core business is about, and that's about building things. So what do we do about this? I've got some thoughts, and some of the things I've heard this morning about what you're doing here at Clemson are encouraging to me along this line. I'm going to start with the school curriculum. That are some things that I think we can do to help get ahead of this. For the design professionals in their degree programs. And the emphasis in the schools has traditionally been on design training. And that's appropriate. That's not something that's easy to learn from scratch when you're out there trying to do it every day. It's good to hone and explore those skills in the classroom and over a 4 or 5 year degree program. But let's add something. Let's think about adding something to that. What if we had a course or a series of courses called something like Construction Techniques for Design Professionals? You bring in, you either have a faculty member that has that kind of experience in a practice career, or bring in guest speakers with that kind of experience that have done construction. Some of you, I'm sure, would be eager to participate in something like that. And also bring in people that are used to facility management, that have that kind of experience. Use those courses to cover the basic major building systems and equipment that a design professional is going to encounter in their career. Talk about how those things go together. How are they built? How do we put them in a project? What are the tolerances associated with those? What do you have to allow for when you're doing that? What are the challenges that you typically run into in assembling those systems or installing those systems? And from the owner's perspective, what do you need how do you need to accommodate making them maintainable? I think a course like that should be placed late in the curriculum, 3rd or 4th year in the undergrad, maybe even as a graduate course. The other thing that the schools can do is encourage a co-op program. And I know the engineering disciplines have been really good about this historically, where while you're in school, alternate terms and go work in the real world while you're studying. I think there's no replacement for that kind of experience in the education process. So what does that do for us? That gets those students, while they're learning the business, to understand that all of these things are an important part of what we do every day. On the construction side of the education, how about a required course or series of courses called Design for Construction Professionals? Mirror image of what I just talked about, taught by guest speakers or a faculty member that have design experience. Seasoned folks that can share the importance of all of that with the growing construction professional. Do things like covering the fundamentals of what the design process is like. What are the tools we use? What are the techniques we use? How do we make decisions about design? What's the level of information that you should expect at each of those phases? Understanding what the intent of a design document is and what it's not. Especially as we're all starting to ask for exchange of 3D models. The architect creates a 3D model for a different purpose than you do. So how does that all work together, and how can we do better to share those? A good understanding of how a designer selects the materials and systems that they pick will help us a lot with things like substitution requests and all of those things. If you understand what they're doing better and they understand what you're doing better, we're all going to get a better result in the end. And again, that should be a late in the program curriculum. After you've got some of the basics down, get out there and do that in late undergrad or as a graduate course. And I think you may be doing this even better than the architects are, doing some co-op work during the school year. Again, the goal is for each of these segments of our industry to gain an understanding of what the other one deals with every day, so that as they get out into the world, they get a head start on all of that. And Clemson's got a great opportunity, and I'm excited to hear about this Excel yard that was mentioned. If you've got both of those things in your school, put them together. Get them working together. You may be already doing this. Have those students work together to execute a project. Great opportunity for a school to do community outreach, for example. Do a small community-oriented project together from design to execution. I'm sure you can get Paul doing his fundraising skills again. You can find somebody to sponsor something like that, and do something that benefits your community, but also benefits those students as they begin to get out there. Maybe it's a senior project that everybody has to do together, or a joint thesis project. After school, though, we've also got to do some different things, I think, as we bring in people that are new hires. For the design professionals, I had the benefit of this happening to me by accident early in my career. I think that brand new intern right out of school ought to spend 6 months on CA as their first assignment. Find out, and a lot of time in the field, as much as possible, to see this is what the drawing looks like, this is what it means out in the real world. The goal there is to understand how what you draw or don't draw impacts what gets done in the actual construction of it, and what problems it might create for those that are trying to make your drawing into a real thing. You get to learn what is going to automatically lead to a clarification request or a correction in the field. Not going to be perfect, but you at least understand the big picture. And you pair that young intern with an experienced design professional that can walk around the site with them and help them see what the important things are and what the important questions are. In a perfect world, your superintendent ought to be part of that too, walking with them. On the construction side of it, I think a similar approach where the first assignment somebody that comes to work for you gets is they shadow your best superintendent for 6 months. If they go right to the office, they're never going to really be able to grasp that, that kind of experience. It's hard to get them back out there once they're settled into that office work. Again, identifying the challenges that they're going to face, understanding what those trade subcontractors are doing, understanding the implications of missing that coordination moment early on, involving that sort of mentoring relationship in a more intentional kind of way. And wherever it's possible, get that design professional and that young construction professional and their mentors to do all this together. There's nothing more important than developing that common language of being able to communicate better. Why is all that important? Well, the biggest risk we have is related to our people. The more we are able to train them, the better we're going to do at managing the big risks on a project, which are almost always things that go wrong. Weather we can't control, supply chain we can't control very much, but we can control what we're doing on the job site. We can control what we're doing in the design studio, and if we're doing a better job of all of that, it's going to really help us manage all of those risks. The other thing is, if I've asked this before in an architect setting, what's the core of what we're doing in our business? What is our business about? And we'll all say things like building projects and that kind of thing. I'm going to take a different position. We are in the relationship building business. Every business is really a relationship building business, and the projects that we do are the vehicle through which those relationships are built. We mostly talk about relationship building, and in fact, it may even happen today from the list of topics that Paul shared with me. We talk about relationship building in the context of business development, primarily. And going back to the conversation about silos, we put a certain category of people in that business development bucket, and it's their responsibility, we think, to do all that relationship building while the rest of us are out doing projects. Well, I'm going to argue that every person on your team is doing business development, from the project executive all the way down to the laborer in the field. Because if we have that mindset, we're going to be a lot more conscious of what every one of those people are doing. Because I, as an owner, what am I going to remember from the business development context? I might have enjoyed that lunch you took me to, or that golf tournament you invited me to participate in. But what I'm really going to remember is, did you do a good job on my project? Was it painful to get through? Was the work good? Were the workers doing efficient and effective work? And if we don't get a handle on that, along with training this next generation to both think that way and be able to do their jobs in a more comprehensive way, we're at risk of losing those good relationships, because no amount of lunch and golf tournaments is going to overcome a bad project experience. You're going to have 3 panels, as Paul said and Duval said. You're going to have an owner and architect and contractor panel. You're going to have some subcontractors and suppliers, and then you're going to have kind of an insurance and legal panel. If we can do a good job of building these better day-to-day relationships and doing our jobs on the project much more effectively, we might not need that third panel as much. Now, stuff's going to go wrong. We all need insurance. We all need all of those things. We need the lawyers. But I think we'd all agree that if we're getting to them, not a good story. We've already had a bad day if we're having them in the conversation. So better training that helps us all understand what we do and the challenges we face every day as we do it will go a long way to developing these constructive relationships. We all need to be successful and to mitigate our risk. And that understanding is going to help us also realize that, A, none of us are perfect. And we shouldn't behave as if that's what we expect of each other. We need to give grace to each other when things go wrong, because they will. We need to own it when we make mistakes. Lawyers might not advise you to do that, but in real life, it's a great way to overcome a bad situation. And I've always said, bad news does not get better with age. Something starts to go wrong, speak up. Careful how you speak up, but speak up. Don't surprise me, the owner, with something that's been sitting around for a couple weeks. For those of you that are students right now, the message I want you to get is don't get seduced by the cool tools and all the fun parts. We're here to build stuff. And we've got to get those fundamentals, and we need you to want to learn that because it's so important to doing what we do as our core business. I appreciate the opportunity to share this with you today. I hope at least this was thought-provoking. None of it was revolutionary. We all kind of know that we got to do a better job at a lot of this stuff. And as we're talking through the other topics today, hope this will help prompt some conversations. Our business is full of risks that we have to deal with every day, but if we can get to a better understanding of the risks that each of us face, it might go a long way to reducing them for all of us. So thank you for the opportunity, and I'm happy to take any questions that anybody has. Back here.
Talk about not having enough front-end time.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, you said that there was not enough front-end time for anyone to analyze the projects. How do you change that? How do you get the owners to start planning sooner and allowing contractors more time to review the scope?
Yeah.
I mean, we bid jobs in 2 weeks that take architects a year to design.
Right. Right. No, you're absolutely right. That's a culture change that's going to have to happen on the owner side, and I don't honestly have a good answer for that. I think, I am in a public sector environment, so we've got some rules about how procurement works that actually help us in that regard if we take advantage of it. It's just a matter of, I didn't talk about this. There's not kind of an equivalent pool of owner groups that we can address that to as easily. But it'd be great as part of feedback. And I know every project's going to be different, but what does it really take to do a thorough job? I don't know that I know the answer to that. If it's a $50 million re-roofing project, it's a different answer than a $1 million toilet renovation. But we got to get in the conversation. We got to have conversation about that in our industry, about how we deal with that problem. I'm on your side. From my perspective, so my agency, I'm trying to push us to be more thoughtful about all that. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Ken, thanks for your keynote speech, and that you brought up a lot of really good points. As an academic, I just wanted to clarify a couple of things about the Clemson experience. It's important that everybody understand, we get a lot of feedback about how, man, our construction program needs to be better engaged with architecture. And I don't disagree with that at all. We just happen to live in a world at Clemson where the undergraduate degree in architecture is a Bachelor of Arts in architecture. We don't get to control that.
Right.
If I were president for a day, I might change that, but I don't, that's not in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But I will note that we could do a much better job of engaging our undergraduate construction education with the master's degree in architecture. And I think that's where the synergies lie.
Yeah.
The reality is that probably 50%, I'm just making up that number, but somewhere around 50% of the bachelor's degree, the Bachelor of Arts in Architecture graduates will never work as an architect.
Right. That's right.
So we're really, in the past, I've struggled with this for 7 years. How can we do more with the undergraduate degree in architecture at Clemson? And it would be really throwing good money after bad to even go down that road, because construction educators, our faculty, would be educating folks that are going to end up working in some other venue in the world. So the best investment for us to bring architects and construction professionals together, recognizing that the realities are that the bachelor's in construction science and management is the terminal degree in construction.
Yeah.
Obviously, we think we add value at the graduate level, and we add a lot of value at the graduate level, but our students, our undergraduate students, go to work as professionals in construction. Yeah. And the master's degree students in architecture go to work as professionals in architecture.
Right.
So that's where, and I'm just planting a seed for the faculty that are in the room. That's where I hope in the future our department will invest its resources, is bringing, and right now we have a competition team in design build going on. Harnish Sharma is leading that effort with the Design Build Institute of America, a fantastic team with a master's, a graduate student in architecture on the team.
Great.
And that's, all the evidence would suggest that that's where we would add value. And again, my only point is, it's not really a question, it's a statement about what you said, is that after 7 years of observation, my conclusion is that's where we would be best served at trying to collaborate more.
Good, good. Well, so since Clemson's in that, 4+2 for the architects, I'm not sure what the pattern is. That was the way the Georgia Tech program was when I was there. I agree with you 100% that the graduate program in architecture may be the place to do that. And you know, the other aspect of it is considering kind of joint degree approach too, where you can get an architecture degree that might specialize in some construction technology. That's a growing need, honestly, because the buildings are getting more complex to build, and it's because the tools are allowing us to do that more easily, and providing us analytics that help figure all that out. So wherever we do it, the main point is we got to get those two disciplines together as soon as we can so that we all understand each other better, because everything's changing so fast. Yeah. Back here.
Thank you. My name is Peter Sheridan. I graduated from Clemson with a CSM degree, so it's glad to be back. Ken, it's glad to have a fellow owner in here. I'm an owner's rep, mainly in the public sector, and it was surprising for me To hear a lot of stuff you say, it's like what we talk about on a day-to-day basis as an owner's rep. So right now, I'm helping the government build a building, a federal courthouse, and we've selected the architect, and we're about to solicitate the contractor, and we don't even have a site yet. And so it's, how do you get, I guess my question is, the private sector to follow what the Army Corps does and what kind of GSA does, is bringing in the contractor early and doing constructability reviews and all that, because that's required, you know, in the private sector. So how do you, in the public sector, so how do you bring that to the private sector?
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that we've got to overcome is the perception in the private sector that we in the public sector go too slow. And I don't know what the vehicle for that is, honestly. Like I said, there's an association for architects. There's associations for the construction industry. There's not so much a cohesive group of building owners that we can kind of go to on this. I think maybe the best way is to leverage our respective, I'm speaking as an architect now, our respective professional organizations to communicate that to the owners through some kind of education process. We've got to reach some consensus too on, back to the earlier question, how much time at the beginning to do the kind of analysis we need to do is enough. It's not a one-size-fits-all answer. I think we all have to advocate for that kind of from a grassroots perspective. But I don't have a good answer for that problem. Anybody else? Yes, back in the back. Yeah, I think since they're recording, they're looking for everybody to be on mic.
We're sitting at a table with one of our owners and one of our architects that we work with quite often, so, making it very uncomfortable over here. I'm kidding, we've never been through any of this stuff before.
Oh, yeah.
What I would say, and Mike kind of touched on this, is do you see the industry from an owner's standpoint moving to design build, and would that offer a solution to this?
It can. The roofing project I mentioned is a design build project, and we still had problems like this. And all it meant was that the contractor involved is the ones that's responsible for fixing the problem, not just the designer or just the construction professional. Honestly, I've never done this, but the integrated approach is probably a way that could start to move in that direction. I spent a little time working at HKS, and they were very big on that integrated approach, especially in their healthcare practice. And my own observation as an outside observer is that might be the answer. I think the private sector is certainly has a lot easier path to adopting that approach. I don't think it's going to take a while for the public sector to kind of accept all of that. It's hard enough in my world. Design build is hard to get them to understand because all of the processes in our sister agencies that manage these projects in the state of Georgia, their processes don't know how to deal with design build, and it makes it, we have to work around a lot of things there. But design build moves in the right direction, but again, it makes this understanding of each other between the construction professionals and the design professionals even more critical, because now that the design professionals are working for you, and you've got to understand how to have those conversations so that that all goes smoothly. Because, you know, the other side of that is they've got a fiduciary duty to the public because of their licensure to do certain things that may not be the kind of things you'd prefer them to do, but they don't have a choice. And so again, this whole relationship thing and making sure we understand each other, we understand what we're supposed to do in each of those disciplines individually, but then we also understand each other's pain and skills that are needed is going to go a long way to do that. Short answer is, I think the integrated delivery method is something that we ought to see more of. And hopefully we can we don't hybridize that too much to take away the benefits of it. Design build is better, and more people are moving toward that, but it's not the right solution for every project, I don't think. Yeah, back over here.
Collaborating, because we heard earlier about making 3 columns of average projects, good projects, great projects. We're from a structural steel fabricator, and all of our great projects have been early on involvement of the owner, architect, engineer, trading partners, contractor. So what's the biggest fear as to not going forward with those type of methods?
I think it's mostly we're all more comfortable with what we've done before, right? So every time we do to a new construction method, a delivery method, there's concern about what it means. They get, your insurance carriers, your attorneys all get nervous that all of the issues that might arise from that haven't been tested, so you're breaking new ground. I think it's mainly the unfamiliarity of it. We're all this fear of the unknown, I think. And I don't think anything I've talked about today is delivery method dependent. There are ways to accomplish I think the only one that might be challenging to do this with is the old traditional design bid build, because it's the most siloed way to do construction delivery. I think all of the others, there's an opportunity to do some of the collaboration that helps all this. But the adoption of something new is always a challenge, just because of the business, the unknown business risks involved is the way I'll say it. And not because they're any greater or less than any other method, it's just you don't know. And I think, too, being successful, it's important who the players are on every delivery method. You can have a absolutely fantastic CM at risk experience on one project, and the next one with a different group of people could be horrible. It all depends on the people. And it also doesn't matter which uniform you're wearing, what the name of your company on your shirt is. It's the individuals involved that really matter, no matter what way you're doing, what delivery method.
Hey, I'm Todd Usher. I'm a residential general contractor, and I teach in the Masters of Real Estate Development program here at Clemson. I think just an exciting development that's happened in the last year is real estate development is now part of the construction department, and we're all under the College of Architecture.
Yeah.
So we've got this opportunity now not only to make connections between design and construction, but between real estate development, design, and construction. Mm-hmm. So the real estate development students are often going to be our future owners, or owners reps perhaps.
Right.
And it's an exciting opportunity for the industry because all of this is coming together.
Right.
And a shameless plug, we've got 15 or so real estate development master's students here. So any of you in the crowd that might be interested in a future hire,
yeah, that's great.
Please seek them out.
I'll be looking for a successor soon.
There you go.
So, yeah, and that's just from my own perspective. My department is called Project and Program Management. It only really reflects a third of what I have to do on the owner side. I'm I'm certainly leading a small team of project managers, but I also am responsible for coordinating how we're spending our capital dollars all the way across the organization. And I'm responsible for ownership of our campus master plan. So who's the person that has the skill set to manage all this? It's somebody like the students you're talking about that have exposure to all of that. It's not a facility management person. It's not, it's not necessarily an architect or somebody from a contracting background. It really is a real estate position that, as I'm going to redefine it.
Yeah, and I think the exciting part is that program, the master's level real estate development, these students are getting exposure to not only construction, not only design, but the risk side financially.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
pretty interesting connection with the theme of this conference,
Right.
because they understand the financial risks that are being undertaken in a
Yeah.
project.
Yeah. Yeah, good. That's exciting. You all, it sounds like you all are really at an exciting moment in your program because because you're making these changes, this is the opportunity to really rethink things. And, I've said to some of my contractor friends, we're working with Paul and his team on a project right now. This is also an opportunity for you to distinguish yourself in the market. If you do this stuff well, if you do a good job of training your people and it makes your delivery better and a better experience for the owner, guess what's going to happen? You're going to be more successful. So seize that opportunity. Yeah. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ken. I did not blink an eye on that session, so I was all locked in. Thank you again for that session, and yeah, we have a little giveaway for you as a token of appreciation, and thank you for making your way out here. I appreciate it. A couple things. I did not note this, but what Ken said is exactly where I think our eyes are going to be moving forward. And the reason why we have the new college was exactly for that purpose, is how can we better work together and build future leaders that are not only solid in one sector, but understands the overall aspect of the entire industry. Like Todd said, we acquired real estate development 2 years ago, and we're so glad because that not only gave the real estate and development students into construction, but vice versa as well. So now so we're one, right? So now they can cross-pollinate courses across multiple disciplines. As part of that, again, not to prolong on this one, but we also introduced a minor. This was about 2 years ago in construction science and management. Guess 90% of the students in the minor are from architecture program, and vice versa, right? So I think that's a direction we're headed. So Ken, what a perfect segue into where we're headed as a college, as an industry, and also today at the symposium. One other note, I learned very quickly in the industry, when I was in the industry, is the delivery method is as good as the people that are selected to do that delivery method, right? So again, thank you for that reminder. Again, thank you again, Ken, for an excellent keynote. We're so excited we're here and spend time with us. Again, to move on, if you notice on our schedule, we have actually built in a lot of networking breaks. And this was one of the feedbacks we got a few years ago, because as much as it's important to sit in and to hear from all the experts in the industry, it's also very important to network and get to know each other. So after every session, we have about a 15-minute networking break, and then we'll have a panel session after every break. So with that, I did want to recognize some people today. Do we have Leslie and Sage? Can you please stand up? So these two, Leslie and Sage. Yeah, give a round of applause. So Leslie has been on our end working a lot of hours trying to make this event a success, and we just got Sage this semester. She's a student in architecture program actually, and she's been helping us in the background. So thank you to you both for making this an event a success.
Sage graduates from architecture in December.
We're all about shameless plugs, aren't we? So. With that, I think it's 10:30. We have a 15-minute break. There's, restrooms to your out on your right in the hallway. I believe there's some coffee and water break, and we will be back here at 10:45 for our first panel session.